All right, welcome back. This is a business. My name is Simbalaji Charles here again. Now let's talk about the insurance sector this morning. Well, 35% of 56 licensed businesses in the insurance sector in the country have been given up to December to pump money into the businesses or lose their operating license. Now we have some further information of this. Now we do understand that this was actually pushed forward by 6 months, meaning that even up to December now, the 6 months will be expiring. Now, Insurance Regulatory Authority, IRA, conducted a review mid this year on the companies that met new requirements on capital adequacy and found that 20 firms were short of cash in the review of the new requirement meant to reduce cases where companies are unable to pay claims. In this regard, the regulator has increased current standard capital of 300 million shillings for general business to 600 million, or 20% of the net earned premiums of the preceding financial year, whichever is higher. Longer-term business life insurers who have been setting aside 150 million were required to raise their capital to 400 million shillings, or 5% of the liabilities of the businesses for the financial year, whichever is higher, while composite and water will have to show up capital to 1 billion shillings. Fantastic. Good. All right, to help us understand this, let's first start with Washington Gap. It's up to December, and remember, within this period, we do have it taken forward by 6 months. Do you think that it needs to be extended again, owing to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, Washington?
That will have to be extended again, because you've got to understand, in the 6 months, why are you going to get the premium, so to speak, to increase the capital adequacy funds, that the minimum capital requirements that we are talking about? You've got to remember, the economy is still in a sluggish state, and 6 months is still not good. And just like you said, we are still going to see an extension of the same, because remember, raising capital by so much, unless now we have the companies so affected, them raising money from elsewhere, unless if you have investors out of this country who are willing to invest into into the insurance industry in Kenya. But for them to invest, of course, they've got to be sure of their returns. There are quite a number of actually investors, let me say, who are very, very interested in what the insurance industry is offering in Kenya. Because I can tell you, we have one of the best regulations on book. On book, we have one of the best regulations. But like all good things in this country, sometimes they are not carried out. They are not made practical, so to speak, for them to generate revenues or to make sense in an economy. But in the next 6 months, if you are going to rely on the economy to come up with that kind of money, that will not be possible. The money will have to come from outside investors. Or we have to do merger, so to speak.
Yes. All right. I just want to bring in you, George, this morning. Now, we do know there's some other regulatory procedures that are also waiting for the insurance sector. Now, we do know in 2021, we do expect the full implementation of IFRS 16, which everybody is also afraid of, which was touted to be amongst the biggest game changers in the sector. If that is true, that if you look at that percentage, 35%, is that not quite a big number for somebody to say, maybe we need to hold on any regulatory framework that looks to sort of squeeze them further within this pandemic?
Elijah, if you look at the history of corporate failures in Kenya, then I would want to agree with the regulators that this sector should need to be regulated a bit further. If you look at the banking industry and you saw the failure of Chase Bank the other day, and you saw the failure of the other bank that failed before Chase Bank, I don't remember the name. If the regulator had been more keen to look at their, and some of these banks would not have gone down. Remember, when an institution like a bank or an insurance goes down, then it goes down with so many people. That is the depositors, the investors in there, the persons premiums in them. And therefore, personally, insurance industry as well as banking industry are industries that needs to be regulated very firmly. That is my opinion. Not only those two industries, but look at what has happened even in the retail sector with the failure of Nakumatt the other day, and with the struggling of Tuskys the other day. If you look at the persons who bear the biggest brand when these companies go down, are the suppliers or those who trade with them. So basically, my opinion is IRA needs to implement this guideline. Maybe they would want to look at the timing and just increase the period for these companies to show up their capital. Me, I'm proposing, or I'm looking at giving them maybe 2021 to show up their capital. But ultimately, Simba, my take is that these companies should be made to comply with whatever the regulator puts on. Remember when there's an insurance company that went down, I think in early 2000s or the late 90s, that went down with a lot of premiums, especially in the transport industry. You don't want to see that happening again, especially the way our economy is structured now. You don't want to see any other company going down because of lapse in regulation. And some of these regulations are meant to protect the stakeholders, or are meant to protect the persons who deals with these industries, because these guys getting premium day in, day out. I think they've not told us that they have stopped getting premiums now that we have the pandemic. They're still getting the premium, and therefore we need to have a safety net to protect their customers. That is one. To protect the other stakeholders who they piggyback on to grow their business, Elijah.
Yes. All right. Now, Washington, let's look at the number again. I'm gonna ask you this, and I want you to answer me from an inside-out perspective. I mean, when you look, that's a big number. If you're talking about insurance firms that can't meet their adequacy needs right now, in fact, even paying premium is going to be a problem. Are we going to talk about come January next year? Once IRA will look at them and say, well, you haven't been able to meet that, and we do know that IFRS 16 is also coming next year in 2021, are we going to see a sporadic merger and acquisition in your sector? Just because now the smaller firms will be looking for ways just to stick within the limits and regulations.
Well, you're very, very right. Just like I've told you, Simba, this industry needs a lot of capital injection for it to actually bring it up to par with the world standards. That's why the purpose of accounting standards like IFRS 16, all the IFRS is International Financial Reporting Standards, when they were introduced, the purpose is to make the insurance industry competitive in this country, in the world, so that those investors, when they are looking to invest in insurance industry in Kenya, they have a common accounting standards that they can have a look at for them to be able to compare a company in Kenya and a company in Europe, whether it's profitable getting into the company, investing in the company or not. The IFRS standards are very, very important to the insurance. Actually, they should be compliant. Now, when you talk about the insurance industry, you know, has been a big problem of regulation. What I'm talking about is this: we have several insurance companies that have gone down in people's premiums, that have gone down in people's lives. As we speak right now, we know there are companies that are really, really struggling to pay claims. These companies are they're still collecting premiums, so to speak, from the members of the public. These companies are still putting people's lives at risks, people's financial future, so to speak, into ruins. Because what happens when insurance company does not come through for you when you're supposed to get a claim? It means, the other party will have to come for you for your assets, so to speak. So the biggest problem right now is regulation, because we need to understand those companies that are not paying claims, those companies that are still right now not performing up to the standards, why are they still doing it in the insurance industry? We already know there are companies that have applied for moratorium. A moratorium that means that they can be able to operate for the next 1 year without them paying any claims, for them to set up their books properly. That is okay. I mean, it's a corporate requirement, but you need to understand what are the companies that have not applied for a moratorium. What are they doing? We know companies actually that it's sort of actually paying, for example, like motor claims. They go ahead and open another branch, another department of insurance, a totally new one, and they start collecting premiums. That means we are seeing a lot of things not going right to the insurance sector. Let us not be lied to by anyone. The insurance industry right now has a lot of issues. We as insurance agents have a lot of issues. There are companies actually that are not paying our commissions. There are companies that are stealing our commissions. And these companies are still on board. As much as IRA talks about taking care of the industry, taking care of the players, there's a lot of politics. Let me say that. There's a lot of talking things that actually don't do. When you talk about the insurance industry right now, as we speak, we have an issue with companies that has been stealing our commissions for the last 20 years. We have an issue with a company that owes us 200 billion as we speak right now. But when I put my complaints across the insurance industry to the sector, the same IRA that is supposed to be regulating us, they're basically ignoring me. So what is this lip service that these people are talking about? This industry will never grow. I'm telling you, there's too much corruption in it. And actually the other day, I've even called for the scrapping of IRA, and we have something else reconstituted afresh. Because as you speak right now, actually, let me say, what we need is in IRA is a total overhaul of the whole sector. We have complete different people coming in and a totally different mandate, because as you speak right now, the level of corruption in the industry has completely, totally messed up the insurance sector in this country.
Yes.
That's what I mean. We have seen, and almost everyone in this country has had an issue. Nowadays, you get a claim with a certain insurance company, they don't pay. Outrightly, they don't pay because they do not want to pay. Now, IRA says, if something like that happens, come and see us. When you go to IRA, they start taking you around and around. Why? Because someone at IRA has been bribed by that insurance company, So, for how long, for example, you have someone lives in Kitale and you're supposed to come to Nairobi and have a meeting there. How many meetings can you have? What's going on, Timber?
All right, Washington, it looks like much has to be done clearly, and we're going to see exactly whether some of these licensed firms are actually going to meet their capital adequacy needs as of December, and if they don't, then we'll be waiting to see exactly what happens in your sector as well. Gentlemen, if you may, just because of time, let's quickly, therefore, cross over to another issue that is taking center stage this morning. It's about KTDA. Now, meanwhile, the Council of Governors has termed the proposed tea industry regulations as a clawback on the devolution of the agriculture function to counties. Now, governors from tea growing regions have now vowed to move to court to contest the rules. All right, now let's go back and see where they come from, because in April, the government did unveil a raft of proposed policy measures aimed at breathing life into the tea subsector's value chain, and that's why it begins. Now, the measures were particularly targeted at addressing a perceived inefficiencies in Kenya's tea marketing system. That's exactly what we're coming from. Let's therefore look quickly at how we've been performing as regards the tea sector in the country. Let's look at the volume of exports that we've been able to take out from 2015 to 2020. And you can actually see that 2020 is where we had the biggest jump, and that jump actually did start getting experience all the way from 2018, albeit a slight decline in 2019. How much are we earning? Let's also take a look at that this morning. In terms of the earnings, you can actually see also that all the way to 2020, that's when we've also been experiencing bigger earnings, especially again from 2018 to 2020, because of the bigger export numbers that we're talking about. Now, let's come therefore to exactly where the problem is. Number one, and I want to talk to you, George. Is it true that the government should take over KTDA from where you said it this morning?
Simba, I'll give you a brief background of the problems in the tea sector. And remember, tea is one of the highest foreign exchange earners for our country. When you look at it vis-a-vis our other export that includes tourism and horticulture and even foreign remittances. So I think this is a matter that needs to be addressed with a lot of soberness. KTDA was formed to respond to the challenges that were there in the tea sector then, because then it was managed by the government. But there are a lot of inefficiencies in the way that the tea sector was managed. And that is how KTDA was born. But when KTDA came into place, unfortunately, it again picked up those inefficiencies that were there before. And then it came up, it brought in with it now a lot of corruption issues, unfortunately, Simba. And that is where we are. So that you find that whatever value that we get from this sector doesn't trickle down to the smallholder farmer, who KTDA is supposed to be taking care of, Simba. I don't want to agree with the governors that we want to decentralize tea management. Remember, tea is, as I said before, is one of our heaviest foreign exchange earners. And if you want to decentralize and everybody to do their own bit, then you might find that our tea becomes less competitive in the international market. Remember, we are not the only tea producers in the region or in the world per se. We have other countries that do very well with tea. And if you become uncompetitive at the international market, then we'll find the ultimate loser will be the farmer down there. So I would want to ask for a lot of sobriety in this. How can the national government and the county governments come together and see the best smallholder for the tea that it produces year in, year out? Remember, the smallholder bonuses. Of what it used to be, and it doesn't mean that our tea prices have gone down. What it means is that there are a lot of cartels. Let me call it that way. In between the is what we need to address. I looked at steel. If you look at our government. And just to forge up that to ensure the smallholder farmer gets value for his product. But what I would really advise again is having for the smallholder farmer that will eventually make our tea very uncompetitive at the international tea Elijah.
All right, Washington, let me paint for you a picture of where we are this morning as in relation to KTDA issues and where our tea sector is performing. So you might all chime in this morning. Now, this is what the governors are saying, Washington. And I want to read you just a direct quote from Muthoni Njuki. Now, she's saying, she's the governor of Tharaka Nithi, we note that the ministry has put in place a tea reform committee that does not have representation of the counties. We know the proposed reforms and policies negate and violate the principles of devolution, and therefore we reject them in total. Good, let's move on to the next one. She also says we propose the involvement of all stakeholders in the reform process, including restructuring of KTDA. I'm just going to leave it there and go on to what she says again, that direct sales be encouraged on condition that the buyer's price is higher than that of the auction. All right. Now, what the governor has done is that they've called on the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya to withdraw the proposed reforms to allow for more consultations. Fine. But let's look at how KTDA is performing there for this morning before we respond to that, Washington. Now, they have paid a bonus of 51.8 billion, which represents an 11% jump from the 46.4 billion that was declared the previous year, albeit has having a 30% increase in the production of the small tea farmers in the country. Washington, what do you hear from all those statements? Looks like KTDA is doing okay.
Wow. Just like my colleague has said, there's too much. I don't know where the rain started beating us in this country as far as the main cash crops are concerned. The main cash crop, that is coffee and tea. And remember, this was before independence, this was a preserve of the European settlers. You could not just grow tea before the Europeans during the colonial period. You could not just grow coffee. But it seems like when eventually the Africans were allowed to do the cash crops, it started off very, very well. But along the line, there are people who decided that now they initially people used to be educated, people used to live on the cash crops in this country, people used to do everything. There are people who are educated with coffee, there are people who are educated with tea, the process of tea in this country. Hue and cry. Where I'm coming from is that the CS agriculture now, Munya, has let me say, they've decided that now it's about time now to start looking at the destruction of this cash crops movement for specifically tea sector. And the tea sector has had a history of brokers. Brokers are those who've been finishing up the farmer completely. People have been uprooting tea bushes in this country because at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense to keep on slaving year in, year out. The money doesn't come in. And what you find is that as much as Kenyan tea is so valuable in the world market, the farmer is not getting anything. What CS Munya is actually advocating is that the tea now needs to be directly marketed, or the money needs to come directly to the particular factory that produces the tea. You know, that's basically what he's talking about. But now, the biggest problem is this. It's a problem with the county governments, because county governments now, they feel they're being left out. And remember, these county governments also are looking at sources of revenue from anything that happens within their locality. They're expected to raking some money out of that. And I remember to talk about tea farmers there, it was kept back. And you're wondering what was going on. But you see, that politics needs to be taken care of, because to a certain extent, these are the same politics that are actually beating up the farmer. This thing needs to be taken care of properly. We cannot be doing half measures. We cannot be paying, for example, it's more like paying lip service to the whole thing. You say you want to do this, but then you're not doing it. Or you say you're going to do this, you come with a nice proposal, but that nice proposal, you're doing it wrong. So, who are you trying to please? Things. We are farmers, basically. We are farmers. And we like things done the way they're supposed to be done in this country. Remember what happened the other day with milk? Remember the other day in Parliament? These people saying that the small farmer should not sell milk to his neighbor. You see this cartelish behavior. That's what should be getting rid of this country. I don't know what needs to be done, Simba. I don't know what needs to be done. You should tell me something.
Washington, on that note, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our conversation this morning. We were joined by Washington Ndegea, the chairman of Bima Intermediaries Association of Kenya, and George Mungia, managing partner, AMG Kenya. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you very much.
Good day.
Good morning.